Good afternoon, folks. It is 12 noon or a couple of minutes after that, Eastern Time. Welcome to the Hangout Hour on American Politics, America Votes 2020. This year is definitely a very interesting year, unique year. No need to repeat that. And American elections are special, are becoming even more special and special, and there are twists in the tail which are coming up. Tonight, what we do is that we are bringing you a discussion on some of the key questions, I think, which are in the minds of all Americans as well as worldwide, based upon the news that President Trump has tested COVID positive. First of all, the US India Political Action Committee and the Imagine India Institute wish and pray for the good health and speedy recovery of President Trump and First Lady and all those affected in his cabinet, and not only his cabinet, but all Americans and all people across the world. We do really genuinely wish and hope that this menace of this disease goes away. That being said, today we thought to hold a discussion with some very sharp minds who are engaged deeply in American affairs and who are following American politics, and as well, especially people of Indian origin who are in the United States, because all aspects, all segments of American society are engaged in the American political process and the American democracy, and pursuit of the ideals and values for which the United States stands. At this juncture, there seem to be some challenging questions, which I'll start tossing to my esteemed panelists as they join me. We've broken the discussion into three broad areas. One is what could be the impact of President Trump being COVID positive on one, the politics and elections in the US right now, because hardly a month remaining for the presidential election. There'll be many twists and tails, many political ramifications, and electoral process ramifications of this. Second is that what could be the impact or ramifications on national security, American national security? And third and lastly would be that what could be some impact and implications on the constitutional process, because there are several processes, the dates by which the elections have to be done, when the president has to be sworn in, the electoral college, etc. So there is a mine of issues and questions which are, bedeviling the minds of everyone, I think, today. So without much ado, I would now welcome my first guest to the studio with me, Mr. Raju Chenithala. Raju is an expert in American politics, a leader of the Indian American community, especially in the state of Indiana, and has been heavily involved with the electoral process, participatory democracy in America for many, many long years. So we're very happy to have him with us. Also, I would say that, and I would request to our listeners and viewers that please feel free to put in your comments on the chat boxes down below, and we would love to help answer your questions. I mean, there are no clear answers maybe, but still to the extent that we can discuss around them. So please do feel free, please do put in your questions, your likes, what is top of your mind right now regards this particular development which has come up right away. Now, that being said, may I invite Raju, please make your opening comments. What is your take on, and I do understand that there's a briefing, there was a hospital briefing or the doctor's briefing right now about President Trump's health a few minutes ago, maybe. But what is your take on how do you think that this news that President Trump is COVID positive, how is it affecting people in general? And then we'll get down into the politics of it. What are your opening thoughts, please?
Robinder, good to see you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. And again, thank you for a kind introduction. It is just sad things what's happening in the world for past few months. This pandemic has caused a lot of impact all over the world, including US, India, and also a lot of economic damages that has done in the world. As you said, the President Trump tested COVID-19 positive just day before yesterday, and he is in the hospital. I just watching the briefing from the physician before I joined here. I think he's doing well. He also tweeted he's doing well, and he is in a good spirit. As how it affecting the government as of right now, there is no effect on the government how they function, because president is still running the government wherever he is, and he's capable of running the government from the hospital. They have all the facilities that he requires to run the government functioning from the hospital itself. And of course, the cabinet and vice president, all the administration is in a good spirit, and they're doing very well. How it will turn out in the politics, we don't know yet. Of course, he cannot campaign, he cannot attend rallies, he cannot be on the campaign trail. So he is quarantining for 14 days. So it's the next 2 weeks. He's going to be somebody else from his Trump campaign would be on the trail. Maybe some of the leaders, some of vice president himself, maybe, and so things will be, I think, running. I don't see how it will affect on the election outcome or election itself at this time.
Oh, really? That's a very interesting observation. I mean, I do understand your point with regards to the government and governance. Absolutely, yes. Governments and administrations have huge redundancies built into them for governance and for executing or implementing the state machineries. But so now let's get into the politics of it, right? The first, let's say, bucket. How do you see this playing out? Uh, in terms of Republicans versus Democrats, do you see the Democrats or the Biden campaign, let's say, taking, though Biden has made a very, of course, statesman-like statement today, and absolutely gracious, that's the way it should be, sure. But of course, that's at the high leadership levels, at the grassroots, where it's a cutthroat competition, and there's so much of a competition to for the White House, so to say. How do you see the Democrats versus Republicans playing out with respect to this, especially given the fact that President Trump was perhaps, not only perhaps, could have sounded reckless or could have sounded irresponsible, according to some or many, with regards to his approach to the pandemic. So, do you see the Democrats kind of going for the kill and aggressively, trying to pin down the Trump campaign on this count?
Yeah, that's a good question. And of course, behaviors, personalities varies from leaders to leaders, and those personalities are very different. So everybody, nobody can be like Trump, and Trump is Trump. How he tweets, how he talks, which we all had to accept, and it depends on the personality. But how he's going to, sorry about that, my dog is barking.
Oh, sure.
Uh, the How it affects on the politics, as you said, Vice President Joe Biden, and also many other leaders tweeted and expressed their sincere wishes and best wishes for the both President Trump as well as First Lady Melania Trump. Those are our best wishes from all over the world, including several leaders here. Also, I heard Vice President Biden will be taking off some of the negative ads on that they were preparing to release TV ads, so he's taking them off. That's wonderful. Being a human, we are all human beings, so it's a wonderful thing to do that, and especially when they are sick and ill and in the hospital. But by the way, I just want to make a blunt statement.
Yes,
Nobody.
exactly, Raju. That's what we welcome. You see, I mean, we do understand the value of this conversation is a hangout hour, right? And you have to be candid and blunt. So, because you see, everybody understands, and I mean, there's subtext out there. So let us be absolutely candid with while being gracious and all. And we are not into an argumentative mode, but yes, we welcome that because that's what will toss out. I mean, the question what you'll say would be the questions burning in the minds of many of our viewers right
Right.
now. So please be as
So,
candid.
we all know United States is a two-party system.
Hmm.
Either you're a Republican or a Democrat. There is nothing else in between.
Hmm.
So, but based on what's happening today, no one is going to change the parties. Nobody is going to
Right.
jump tomorrow from Democratic Party and going to sympathize to President Trump and vote for him. Uh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Republicans are not going to vote for Democratic candidate. That's the way they are, the system, that's the way they are registered. That's where they are voting on it. So I don't see anything changing dramatically at this moment as we talk in the politics, or it's a campaign or its outcome, except the President Trump is not. But you never know, he may even join on the virtual campaign or virtual rallies. Most of as you know, most of the things are video calls, virtual Zoom call, as we are doing. You are in Delhi, I'm in Indiana, we are talking about US and the US politics. These are the things are happening. So you may see him joining a virtual rally from the hospital, or some of his leaders, but the campaign is going to go, the elections are going to go as planned. So nothing is going to change at this time.
No, that's very interesting, Raju, and I completely understand the point, and thanks for bringing it out. And clearly, yes, the US is a two-party system. Most of the votes in any case are decided generally right. It's probably about 10% of the undecideds which are out there, maybe, not even 10. There's some numbers which say 4 5, but let's say about 10 odd percent which are, undecided or swing voters. But do you think that amongst the swing voters this perception will play out that President Trump was being irresponsible, and that's what that may lead them to kind of lean against Trump? Would that play out?
Not so much, because the swing states, independents, they still have to decide how they are going to vote. But more than anything else, anything else is the policies. That is how it affects the economy, how it affects the education, how it affects the industry, business, all those matters, rather than just one this one. Of course, everybody knows it is how the pandemic affected. Everybody has done whatever they could do all over the world, including US and India, other countries. Unfortunately, we lost so many lives all over the world, including US. And of course, it's been challenging. And how the voters will be deciding, mostly the factors, of course, is the how they look at the leadership, how they want the leadership to function in the next 4 years, because that's what they are electing, is from the president from 2021 to 2024. Based on also their resume, how they are functioning in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's all important. Is you know President Trump is not a career politician. He's been there for 47 months. He was elected as a president. He never ran for office. And whereas a vice president has been there for 47 years in the politics. He's a career politician. He was a senator. He was a vice president. So it's those are the things that matters for the people to decide, and especially next generation of the people.
Absolutely. I think you put it very nicely. I think what you're taking from what my take is that you're taking a very measured view, and your view on the political or the election aspect is that it may not have much of a difference as of now. And I do agree with you that campaigning can be very much going on sitting in your room anywhere in the, I mean, anywhere, right? And especially President Trump's base and followers and are pretty much enthused, so they will seek him out. He does not need to maybe go out campaigning. They are the ones following him, and he has his Twitter, so his communication is all done. At this juncture, I would like to welcome another expert and participant in American politics, American public affairs, Indian American affairs, and of course strategic affairs also, Mr. Vikram Chauhan from Houston. So, Vic, please, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much, Vic, for joining us. Once again, a reminder to our viewers who may be watching this broadcast right now, we are live on the Facebook page of US India Political Action Committee, as well as we are live on my own Facebook page also, and Imagine India Facebook page also. Please put in any of your comments and questions, and we would love to answer your questions or any doubts to the extent that we can. It's all about sharing of ideas and thoughts. Now, that being said, may I invite Vikram to make your opening comments, as I was discussing with Raju, that there are broadly three areas we are discussing in this hangout hour. One is the impact of, or the impact on elections and politics, the impact on national security, and the impact on constitutional processes due to President Trump being COVID positive. So, would you like to, or could you please share your opening thoughts on what's been bombshell, I would say, in some senses of a development in the last 48 hours? Vikram, please.
Okay, thanks for having me. And I think I caught a little bit of the last few minutes before I joined. So
Sure.
as Raju was saying that, things are not going to change as far as the Democrats and Republicans. They're all baked in, the only difference is that, this is reality. Everyone can get COVID, so that's what we've learned. Even if you're living in a bubble, you can still get COVID if you don't follow the rules. So I hope President Trump becomes presidential and becomes a uniter for the entire country and gets us through this pandemic. That's what my prayer is for him. Obviously, all our well wishes are with him and his family, Melania, and we just got to know that Governor Christie, all the folks who were with him in the debate stage or preparation stage have gotten COVID positive. So I wish everyone takes the guidance from the doctors and starts working on the healing process for the country. We have had enough of politics and partisanship. We need to get back into going through this pandemic. Politics is going to be there. It's going to take a backstage. We have to get over this enemy right now. As far as
Thank you. Sorry.
what was the other question around the politics part? Obviously, I hope the president mends his ways about treating the pandemic with seriousness as far as social distancing. Charity begins at home, so you got to practice what your administration or your CDC has been talking about: masks, social distancing. Vaccine is not going to be the silver bullet, so we have to practice all that stuff. So that is what my belief is. And as far as elections, I think the debates, there would be some changes, but I think the debates are needed and they should go on. The country still needs to know what their policy incentives are, or whatever they're planning to take the country to. So
Very interesting. Thank you, Vikram. And I'll circle back with you, especially on the second component as to what could be some ramifications for national security. And given the fact that you're an expert in defense and strategic affairs, we would love to pick your brains on that. At the same time, if there are any folks out there who have some questions and comments, we have Venkat from Texas commenting. Good discussion. Thank you very much, Venkat. If you have any, he's also from Houston, actually, Venkat, right? Venkat, if you have any questions, please do put them in. We'd love to have you have your question and toss them around with us. Thank you so much for asking. Now, at this point, we also have one Mr. Steve Alonso, who is an expert in congressional affairs and legislative affairs, because that's another element that we will be touching upon. Like some of the legislative processes or constitutional processes would also come into question, which we would like to kind of explore and see. Now, Venkat says thanks. Thank you so much, Venkat. Venkat, in fact, sometime you should be joining this discussion. You have some wonderful views, and your analysis is so rich. I think that our viewers and we all would have benefited. So, sometime next, we would love to also have you as a guest on the panel, please. Meanwhile, may I invite Steve Alonso, as I was mentioning, who is an expert in governmental affairs and legislative outreach. Thank you so much for joining Steve, and
Thank you.
we welcome, please. Uh, as we were discussing right now, uh, this I mean, the news which broke brought forth several questions in the minds of people as Raju was talking or explaining or sharing his views on what impact it may have on the political and election right now process. His view and also Vikram's view is that it's a measured view, I would say, both of them, as from what I'm gathering as of now. We'll get into more of that. The national security, and we'll come back to politics. We'll keep on popping in and out. From you, once again, what is your first take on this news? What impact would you like to point out, highlight anyone concern or worry or burning question you think is in your mind, or you think could be in the mind of our viewers? Because this show, let us remember, also for the benefit of our viewers who would like to share their thoughts and questions, and we are continuously asking, requesting them to be on their Facebook page, to pop in the questions. We had Venkat pop in, we had a couple of others people who are putting in their questions. So Steve, your opening remarks, please.
Of course, and thank you very much for having me today. And so, most of my main observations are how this will affect a lot of the debates going forward, especially. There's even a lot of discussion with how this will affect the vice presidential debate coming up next week, with even just knowing that how close the vice president was within the president's orbit and how long the general gestation period is with the disease. So, like I said, it's sort of a lot of uncertainty at this time, along with unknowing how the presidential debates will be affected going forward. Again, with because it's about roughly 2 weeks the next debate since the president was diagnosed, as far as we know publicly, and it's unclear if how he will be able to participate and prepare things like that, and how certain measures. I was hearing yesterday how the Biden-Harris campaign was requesting that even the vice presidential debate they'd be 12 feet apart instead of 6. So there's a lot of uncertainty with just the upcoming, just not even just days and weeks until about 30 days to election day. So there's going to be a lot of. It seems like there's been a lot of October surprises already, but I wouldn't be surprised if there will be more oncoming. So.
Sure. So then we are asked each one of the panelists, starting with Raju. Sir, Steve mentioned the October surprise, which is supposed to come up in every presidential election cycle, right? So this year, this seems to be the October surprise, which is out there. What do you think could be some top of the mind questions coming up in the coming days if President Trump continues to be in the hospital for, let's say, the next few days? Because not the rumor mills, I'll say, but the thinking mills will keep on churning, and more nuances will be discovered. I mean, like right now today the question was coming up about the confirmation of the Supreme Court justice. I mean, like now apparently 2 or 3 Republican senators are are maybe struck by COVID. So if that is so, would the Supreme Court justice nominee be confirmed in time for the elections? That could be an open question, no doubt. So are there any such questions in your mind, you think?
Yeah, let's hope they all fully recover in the next 14, 15 days. That's the prayers we all need to send to the president and his family. It's too soon to conclude some of the things at this juncture or today. As everything can change in a day or 2 days. You never know how the COVID reacts into different bodies or different human beings, how they tolerate. Depends on their immune system, and also previously how their any of the premorbid conditions that they may have that may affect many of these people. But hopefully everybody will fully recover and back to normal in the next 2 weeks. How it is affects, as I told you, like in the beginning, the campaign is going to go on. I think both the parties, both the campaigns will continue to reach out to their base and the voters. And then regarding the Senate, I think it may take more than a couple weeks before even they come to conclusion to because they are looking even after the elections they would vote. So we have enough time and for these few members of the Senate to recover and back to the Senate that will go through after November elections. Again, it's a challenging times right now. It's uncertainties in many fields. But elections, I think it will go smoothly and will come with a good outcome. Thank you.
So a quick question there. And so as of now, you think if the next 5 days, and sure, God forbidding, nothing, nothing worsens, right? So let's say President Trump is out of commission for about the next 5, 7, 10 days due to quarantine, etc. You think it'll have no much impact on the election results in terms of the votes that each one of them gets as of now?
As of now, I don't see that, because the base is already decided these votes. Some Many of them are already started absentee ballots around the country. Many states are already have that. So next to 30 days from tomorrow, I mean, on Monday, I think it is going to be mostly how they reach out to the voters. Mostly people are going to have a lot of TV ads, and of course Trump decided not to. He can go and to the rallies, but I'm sure there will be some other leadership will be at these rallies and campaigning on behalf of President Trump.
Thank you so much, Raju. I think we have a very interesting question from Venkat. He's asking that how vice presidential candidates are more relevant to voters now than presidential candidate today, given Trump testing positive and Biden's age. Raju, can you take a shot at it, quick? And then, I mean, it's
I can
a
chime in.
deep question with several nuances, but if you
Right.
can please, because the question coming from one of our viewers, and as I said, this show is for the benefit of our viewers, audiences, to toss with people and minds like you, and gain their insights. Yeah.
No, thanks, Venkat. That's a good question to ask at this time. But as I said, it's the vice president candidate makes a big difference in any elections. That's why they had to go through the process. They go through a certain process to pick up a best candidate from both parties as their running mate. I think the both of them have running mates. So the thing is, both are pretty strong in their own party. Vice President Pence and Senator Kamala Harris are very popular among their base, as well as their among their party voters. So I don't see anything. In my opinion, it's not going to change anything today. Maybe after 2 weeks, you never know what's going to happen after 2 weeks. I'm not here to predict what happening after 2 weeks, but both the vice presidential candidates bring their own strength, bring their own weaknesses, and they also motivate their own voters base. That's why it's very important the vice president is picked on the same ballot, and the presidential candidate and president, and vice presidential candidate and vice president, all of them are on the campaign trail and talking to their voters. So it is going to be interesting to see how things will roll out in the next 2 to 3 weeks or on November 4th.
Thank you so much, Raju. Once again, this is the Hangout Hour. We are discussing about the impact of President Trump's COVID positive reports, what impact it could have maybe on American politics and elections, national security, and constitutional processes. And we have a very eminent panel out here with us, experts who participate and who kind of are pretty deep into American political affairs and uh, uh, and the context. Now, moving on to Vikram Chauhan. Vic, I cannot resist myself. I was going to toss you the question on national security right now, but I cannot resist asking you the same question which Venkat asked. So, can you please take a shot at it, a quick, 30-second or a 1 minute? What is your take on this question that has come from one of the viewers?
I would add on to what Raju was saying, actually, but now more than ever, the vice president is very important. I look at vice president as a running, not only as a running mate, but as an equal partner now, since both of them are pretty old. And they're also the main cheerleaders for the administration right now. So in the last election stage right now. And
Sure.
it is like we had mentioned last time, it is a historic event for us Indian Americans. I mean, no matter what you think about Miss Harris's, Senator Harris's policies and awareness about the views of Indian Americans, and what their beliefs are. But this is a historical moment for us also, for someone that close to be near the Oval Office or in the Oval Office.
Fair enough.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the second question you had? You had the.
I'll come to the second question now, but
Okay.
thank you, because I think between what Raju said and what you said, I think that's a very, again, a balanced, nuanced approach. Yes, vice presidents are running mates, but the point that you made, Vic, right now is pretty interesting, that it's at times like these that the vice presidents become important, right? Because when the president is unable to attend office or whatever such circumstance, then it's the vice president, who takes the acting role. So
Sure.
the VP becomes extremely important. Thank you. Now, the question to you, Vic, is uh, do you see this again? I know, and I agree with Raju when he says that we are not in the business of predictions. We are just looking at something right now, and hopefully nothing, not there's. I mean, there isn't a cliff coming up soon, right? But still, in the next 4 or 5 days, do you see, from the perspective of national security, any concerns? Not now, of course, we understand the government and administrations, they all have their complete systems, the complete machineries are there, right? But the point is that, would there be any chinks in the armor, so to say? Or would any, because we got such kind of forces out there in the world, we don't even know what kind of forces are doing what kind of vectors are trying what, right from cyber to, whatever, right? So what do you see? Do you see any concern on national security amongst in the minds of national security folks? Overall national security.
I I think there's there's no chances of anything untoward. I mean, things are as it should be. The policymakers and the power brokers are still working the same way as they have been before. And if you don't, if the viewers don't know, uh, the Walter Reed Bethesda office, hospital, has a whole presidential suite. They have, other than the hospital room, there's also offices like regular. It's like a mini White House up there. So things. The chief of staff is there. The defense secretary is also there in the hospital, and the whole cabinet, when they're needed, is there. So the things is as normal as they can be, and that's why they've chosen Walter Reed. It is, and I believe President Trump was normal today. I mean, there's no fever since last 12 hours, it seems. So he is active. Chief of Staff Meadows is got his daily work through together, and President did talk to Majority Leader Mitchell on the High Court thing, and they did talk to a couple of political leaders on the day-to-day affairs. So things are as normal. So there's no need to worry about that.
No, thank you so much, Vic, because that's, of course, I mean, it's comforting to know. It's there is just that these are questions sometimes which pop up in minds of people. So I think it's wonderful that occasions like these, when we are a public platform, and in a public platform, in the public sphere, we are also kind of commonly understanding that things are absolutely stable, and no issues of concern should pop up in minds. So it should be reassuring uh, to the viewers, to the listeners out there. Now, that being said, I was moving to Steve because a question came up from Venkat. Venkat is a political junkie, I think, right? So, Steve, now the question for you is, and since you are, engaged in governmental affairs and relations and political analysis, the question which is coming to you is this: few states decide American elections. And in fact, this question I'll pop a quick round to Raju also and Vic also, right? After Steve. Few states decide American elections. In my opinion, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio will decide this time. Do you agree?
I agree with 2 out of those 3 generally, especially Michigan, Pennsylvania. I guess personally, I would replace Ohio with Wisconsin. It seems to be Ohio tends to trend pretty Republican the last few years and cycles, and even there's the general history that like no Republican has won the White House without winning Ohio. So President Trump will need to win Ohio if he wants to win another 4 years. But otherwise, it's more of a like I think Ohio's pretty Republican, especially Pennsylvania is the big one. I think more Pennsylvania, Arizona might be the more of the deciders. So my three would be more Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Wisconsin. But Michigan could also be on that list as well. I think it's trending a little more blue at this time.
Thank you so much, Steve. I was going to carry the next question to Raj, or the same to Raju, but in the meanwhile, glad to share with you that Sanjay has joined. Sanjay, for the benefit of our viewers, Sanjay Puri is the founder chairman of the US India Political Action Committee. Once again, a very astute mind, a leader in his own right. So Sanjay has joined. In fact, so I think before jumping into the Trump COVID impact, we could just straight off take this question to Sanjay also. So let me get Sanjay, please.
Yeah, what is the question? Hi, Raju. How are you?
Hi, Sanjay. Welcome. Welcome to the show. And
Hi.
for the benefit of viewers and for, of course, Sanjay, Sanjay, you, of course, know the topic of the day today. But the question which came, okay, so we were discussing about Trump COVID and his impact on, national politics, impact on national security and constitutional processes as a consequence of Trump's corona results. But aside from that, one of the viewers in the chat, and as you know, we welcome chat engagements because the more chat engagements come, the better we are able to serve our constituencies. The question is from Venkat in Houston. His question, if you might be able to see on the bottom of your screen, is few states decide American elections. In my opinion, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio will decide this year. Do you agree? Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio.
Well, I would actually say that it'll be Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Um, Ohio, I still think is trending in the Trump direction. I would say it's Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin are key. Even though if you really want to talk about toss-ups, you could argue Florida, you could say North Carolina, and you could say Arizona. But President Trump has to win Florida, otherwise it will be hard to, the math just doesn't work. But yeah, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, add in Wisconsin, and add in a few other states. I would say that's the election.
Thank you. Raju, your quick comment on this question: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio.
Yeah, I agree with Venkat, but I will add a couple more: Wisconsin and Florida, and as Sanjay said, also add North Carolina. So it's not just 3 or 4 states; it may be like 5 to 6 swing states, as they're doing as of right now. So Ohio, we don't know how it's going to turn out, but both of them are focusing. Both the parties are working hard to because Ohio, former governor of Ohio is helping Biden campaign, so that's very interesting from Republican Party standpoint.
I personally think Florida probably still is pretty with President Trump and pretty Republican. Even looking at their midterm government elections, there's been some rising stars came just ever so close to winning on the Democrat side. Andrew Gillum, even years ago, a lady named Alex Sink, and they just couldn't quite get over that hump. And I mean, obviously, President Obama won Florida his two times, but the margins have been close. And I anticipate they will be as well this year. Not just saying this with me being from Florida. But yeah, there I think it's likely to go in Trump's column. It could be a toss-up, though, of course, as well.
Yeah, let's hope that it will be red state, but we never know because absentee ballots and more voters may turn out and things like that. You never know what will be the outcome. We can all hope for the different things, but these all are the major states that is going to decide how the outcome is going to be in the next upcoming elections.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. So now let's come back to Sanjay with the question or with the topic of the day. I mean, the broader one which was there. And Sanjay would love to have your, opening thoughts or your overarching thoughts on the fact that the news and the development with President Trump being COVID positive. Firstly, of course, everyone here has been saying, and we do pray and look for healthy, quick recovery of the president and the first lady and anyone else out there in the cabinet, senate, or any person in America or in the world, right? So that being said, what is your take, Sanjay, would this have any impact on the elections right now, as in the elections which are due on November 3rd? What could be some, some twists in the tail which could come up?
So, before the elections, there's something else that is very critical that's going to happen, which is the Supreme Court confirmation. We have a few senators who have also tested positive. So, leading up to the elections, the Supreme Court confirmation hearings could get impacted. I think that's one. As far as the presidential elections, um, as far as when it is held, how it is held, I don't think a change. This country is very resilient. We have been through all kinds of things in the history of this country, so I think that's not going to be impacted. I think that if the question is politically, what I don't know, Robin, is the question politically what's going to be the impact on it? Is that the
Yeah,
question?
the question is politically, but absolutely, we touched on this exact point which you mentioned, that the confirmation of the new Supreme Court justice due to some senators also being maybe affected by COVID. This came up in our conversation before you joined, so that's absolutely a point out there. But the question is, yes, more politically.
So politically, the elections, Robinder, especially in a country that's so divided, and we just talked that there are 5, maybe 6 states at best that are going to decide. So if you look at those states, it's the people who are undecided within those states that are going to kind of make a difference. So now the question is, if the people who are undecided in those states, was obviously the base has to turn out in those states. So let's say that's an assumption. So now the undecided people, the choices for them are either it's a sympathy feeling towards President Trump, or is this something that you say, hey, he underplayed this, and look at what has happened to him. And he talked about not wearing masks, or he was not wearing masks, and now he's himself is sick. The question becomes is, if he's not taking care of his health, how can he take care of the country's health at an overarching point of view? So there are many arguments. Now it's a little too early to kind of decide or to figure out what the impact is going to be. And my only thing is, firstly, as you rightly said, we need to pray, no matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican or what independent, pray and best wishes for his and health of his family and others, because he is the president of the United States of America, of Republicans, Democrats, independents, of everything. And we need a strong leader, because we still live in a world that is not as safe as we all assume. Yes, COVID is very critical, but there are many other things going on across the board, and you need a leader who is really fully engaged. So that's number one. Second is, you know, we don't know what the impact, Robin, there is. At this stage, if you're undecided, especially elderly, you start maybe wondering that is he really capable of taking care of the health of the nation? I mean, that could be one of the narratives that goes around, but really, I don't know. I really don't know what the viewpoint is.
Thank you, Sanjay. And actually, that gives me an interesting question to take to Mr. Vikram Chauhan. And Vic, I know that you have to go for an assignment. So maybe if you can take this quick question, because it ties in what Sanjay concluded to something which is your area of expertise. When we say national security, the pandemic, from what I understand, the Pentagon is saying the pandemic is a matter of national security, right? So, what is your take, again, coming back to the issue of national security or security, given the fact that the pandemic itself is a matter of national security? It's non-traditional, like forget, I mean, including terrorism or geopolitical challenges, right? This itself has become a matter of national security. So, what is your take on what Sanjay kind of concluded?
I'd like to differ a little bit from what Sanjay said. Was things are not going to be as normal, and it is a little bit of negative for Mr. Trump, President Trump. As far as things are not going to be his way, he believes in rallies. That's not going to happen to revive the base. There will be talk about "I told you so" kind of thing. That if you don't wear the mask, if you don't follow doctors' guidelines, this is what's going to happen. So some of those things are negative. Most of those are negative. The number one issue for the voters or anyone in the world is the pandemic. So if you can't take care of the pandemic, you can't take care of us. So that is number one, which has been decided. Number two, about the security piece. The Defense Department or any others, it is like any other office. They do have to take care of themselves first before they can defend the country. So they are taking enhanced precautions about their own brethren who are in submarines, in ships, and all that stuff. So that is a concern, because if people are in submarines in close quarters for 6 months, so you can't defend a country if you're not healthy yourself. So it is a big concern in that stage. When I said previously, the Defense Department thinks about the pandemic as one of the big factors, along with any other things like climate change or any other thing. So it has prepared for it, but it does factor in all that stuff.
Thank you.
As far as security concerns, I think folks do not have to worry about either way, because Defense Department goes on. Even when the president is sick, like I said, Defense Secretary is up there in the hospital. The Chief of Staff is there, so no one has to worry about that part as far as the security of the country.
Sure. I mean, absolutely, absolutely, yes. Thank you so much, Vic, for your time. And I do understand you have to go. If you have time, please stay on. We'll come back with you. But in case you have to run, we all yield to your time.
Thank you.
Now, thank you so much. Coming to Raju. Raju, you are very active, and let's say maybe like the Indian American community, right? So far, we were talking the broad American nation. Of course, the Indian American community is also Americans, no doubt. But and you are very active and deeply engaged with the grassroots and grassroots, of course, also the Indian American diaspora. What is your sense to this Trump COVID situation? What are you hearing or seeing from some of the Indian American community regarding the developments of the past 48 hours?
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, I just want to repeat that two-party system. Nobody changes party 30 days before elections. Everybody's made their mind. Democrats will never vote for Republicans. Republicans will never vote for Democrats. Only the people who are independents, they don't make much difference in our state, especially in Indiana. Indiana is a more Republican party. At one point, I think it went to Obama when he ran first time. But it's all about the percentage of the polling, how much polling is going to happen from now onwards as the absentee ballots open till November 3rd. And especially, in the key states, how the Indian Americans are going to vote. I talking to many of them, both are equally divided. We have Indian Americans who are very active in a Republican Party. We also have Indian Americans who are very active in Democratic Party. I think it's going to be a voice for us, a minority voice that is going to play a crucial role, especially in the these swing states, especially in these 5 to 6 states. How the voter turnout in the previous elections, the voter turnout was very, very low. Like for example, we only had 28% of the votes, total percentage of the voting. So it's more important is people talk instead of talking on the Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else. They just need to register. They just need to go and vote. Many of the Indian Americans they don't show up on the polls. They don't register, even though they may talk about Indian politics or U.S. politics in a basement parties. But it's very important for these people, especially in these. I mean, all over. It's not just the swing states. It's more important is how many people are voting that makes a difference. We don't have Indian Americans in the percentage of the percentage wise, we don't have voice in the at the elections, especially in the general elections, because ours is a very, very small percentage of the votes compared to other minorities. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to turn out. Hope people are going to register and show up, and even absentee ballots are all, most of the states have it. It's just a requesting how you want to request and mail in the ballot. And especially in Indiana, we have early polls. Actually, the polls open on October 4th or 5th, 30 days before election polling day. People can go and vote at polling locations assigned to these early polling. So it's very important how people, they have to check on their state website or county website, and they can just Google with their county election commission, and it gives a lot of information. So it's a more important is your voice only can your vote is your voice, not the social media, not talking to somebody else. Your vote is your voice. And I request, especially Indian Americans living in all over USA, to make sure you talk to your family, you make sure your all family members are voting.
No, thank you so much, Raju. I'm so much reminded. I think the U.S. India Political Action Committee, and I will invite Sanjay to kind of expand on what Raju said. I think the U.S. India Political Action Committee for the last 20 years, uh, this has been one of the key thrust areas to kind of get folks out there to remind, to vote, to participate, to register. I mean, firstly register, and then get out, go out and vote. And now, of course, with all this pandemic and the mail-in ballot system much more maybe facilitated, it's maybe easier in some senses, right? So absolutely a wonderful, wonderful reminder that each, as many as possible, everyone, go out and cast your vote. Now, on that count, I'll invite Sanjay. Sanjay, of course, if you can maybe reinforce this message, because you see here we have viewers on this show who are listening in, and whatsoever one may say, sometimes reminding things helps trigger a thought, right? Of course, everyone knows and everyone thinks that they should vote, but we kind of let things go and slip. So maybe this show serves a little purpose right now, what your message, what Raju's message is to the Indian American community and to the wider American community, that go out and vote. That is the best form of participation in American democracy. So Sanjay, over to you, something on this, and then we'll again come back to the COVID impact.
Well, I think Raju actually said it exceptionally well, like he does, that your vote is your voice. And I don't think anybody can say it better. I think I'll remind people of 2000. When you remember the elections, especially in Florida, the presidential election was decided by literally hundreds of votes.
538.
Think about it. 128 votes decided the presidency of, in my view, the most powerful person in the world was decided by 128 votes. Now, I have a feeling there are more than 128 Indian Americans in Florida. There are more than 128 Indian Americans in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Michigan. All the states that we say are, battleground states. North Carolina. I mean, I know Raju knows 128 people in those places. So my point would be, we, when I say we, I include myself, have a tendency to, talk about this, that at parties, events, social media, WhatsApp groups, this, that. But none of those actually can matter. Yes, they matter in terms of influencing other people's opinions, getting you an outlet for what you're saying. But ultimately, democracy functions on what you say at the polls. And this country has, we should be so lucky. We have one of the few countries where you have free and fair elections. I mean, look at Belarus. I mean, I can give you examples after examples of countries where you can vote any way you want, but the result is predetermined for whatever and whoever is going to win. So, cherish what we have and remind others of what can be possible. You know, the overall percentage of voting in this country is less than in India. Now, I'm saying that's a really kudos to India because of, the work they're doing, but it should be. The young people do not vote as much. They should be voting. People in the Indian American community don't vote as much. They should be voting. Even if you're not in one of these battleground states, it doesn't matter because there are some down ballot elections also in those states that matter.
Oh, yeah.
And when you go down there for the presidential race, you have the Senate race, the state race. So, just getting your voice heard. And by the way, if you're going to run for office in the future, I'm reminding Indian Americans, people can find out if you had actually voted or not, and they can hold it against you when you start talking about the beauties of democracy, and they find out that you've not voted for the last 4 elections. And there have been many situations like that, and that's
Great.
a great thing to show. So I'm just saying, is to Indian Americans, if your vote is important, but if you're looking to run for political office, it's even doubly important.
So that's a I mean very see, the point is we are communicating, so some of these points can hit home seriously, like I mean Florida decided by 538 votes, right? And so I mean there are more Indian Americans than 538 in many of the states. The president decided on that, right? Wow. So I think that's something which hits as a message perhaps. So for the sake of our viewers, please, we are almost nearing the end of this broadcast, folks. So anyone listening and tuning in, please do shoot in your question. We'll try to answer. We'll try to answer later on in the chat also. And a recording of this show would be put up on YouTube, so you can access it, see it, or share it with your colleagues if you would like to. So now we are heading into the last round of a few wrap-up questions. But before we get into that, Steve, I would like you to kind of comment on what Raju and Sanjay were saying in terms of get out the vote, and especially right now that the mail-in and ballot is going on, and there's been some
Very
confusion on that.
interesting. And I suspect that I'm not 100% confident in even a lot of polls and such we're hearing nowadays, just because a lot of polling is obviously done by telephone and phone outreach, and it seems to be that generally as time's gone on, there's been less and less interest in responding to that. So we'll see what happens at the end of the day in terms of how all these polls and the accuracy of them. So it is very important and very essential that everybody does go out and vote, though. And like you said, that is something to point out what Sanjay said, that folks can't tell like what you're voting for, of course, but they can tell it's 100% public record how often you do vote. So that is something to know.
Very true. Thank you, Steve. So now we have almost run out of time, but I think we have another 5 odd minutes, and we'll take concluding comments. So starting with Raju, sir, what are your thoughts? Again, I'll come back to the topic of the show, which was that Trump coronavirus, what impact on elections, impact on national security and constitutional processes. It seems the consensus of this esteemed panel, which I've had such brilliant minds, is that as of now, it's kind of business as usual in terms of the politics and elections. It won't have a major impact. Nothing to be of concern on national defense or security, nothing to be concerned on constitutional processes. But yes, in the coming days, how these things pan out, and not only President Trump, like talking about the Supreme Court justice who has to be appointed, and if some of the senators cannot be there for the confirmation hearings, what does it mean? And if the whole thing ends up in the courts, by the way, pre this incident, this whole thing is also anticipated could end up in court. So what would it mean? Would it be a 9-seat court, or would then the ninth seat would not be there, which could have major ramifications, right? So I think we are heading into that, but that's all in the realm of speculative. Absolutely agree, right? So all that set aside, Raju, what are your some concluding thoughts to share with our viewers uh, in terms of again this whole process, what we have seen?
Yeah, thank you. Again, good to see Sanjay. Sanjay can act in a movie or something. Is the new avatar. So
It's a COVID avatar.
COVID avatar, I think so. So it's a COVID has impacted worldwide, all more than 150 or 180 countries. Nothing's paid, no one's paid. So unfortunately, President did get COVID positive. we are sending our prayers on behalf of all our Indian American community for their speedy recovery, full recovery, and back to normal. As of today, as we talking today, he's doing very well. So there is no impact, except he's not going to be on rallies in the next 2 weeks, which was supposed to be in few states. But I think someone they haven't canceled those rallies, but they will be maybe hosting some other leaders will attend those rallies. And you saw Vice President Joe Biden releasing a statement, and also he also taking out negative ads from which is a very humanitarian
Yes.
from his point of view. I think that's well received. So it's more we are all human beings. We all needs to be showing compassion and love and affection towards somebody who's ill. And again, outcome of the elections is not going to change as of today. Elections are going to go on November 3rd and elect the new leader. Whoever is going to win on that election, as you said, the vice presidential candidates are going to play a key role. How this is going to turn out in the after next 2 weeks. So as of today, I think the people needs to understand that they need to more voters needs to participate, and they need to make sure their voice is heard and their vote is their voice, and they need to make sure they participate in the democratic process. And that's where we have been campaigning for Indian Americans to do this for last what I've been involved in this civic duty campaigning for last more than 15 years. Now I see a lot of people are running for offices. A lot of people are showing interest, including school board, township, county,
Oh, yes.
a city level or state level, a federal level. So it's very important that we are rising. This is one of the, I would look at it as a service to the community rather than anything else. It's a more about the serving our own community, and we have a seat at the table that we are able to be the voice for the community and express that one. And again, we send warm wishes and speedy recovery to the president and first lady.
So thank you so much, Raju. And well, by the way, we have another comment from another viewer, Uday Sachan. He's saying very interesting. Thank you, Uday, for watching by and your comments. We welcome participation, comments, and questions that we can help answer, or at least kind of think through together. Right? We cannot answer anything in the. There is no gyan out there. We are all thinking through things. Coming back to your concluding remarks. Raju, I absolutely agree. Compassion and empathy and respect for the other are fundamentals. And perhaps this coronavirus, that is what it is teaching us all as humanity to live and let live with each other, including with environment. We all have to live together. We have to have compassion and empathy. Now, unfortunately, in America, yes, for some time, there have been tensions, there have been social tensions and all. So I'll carry that question on to Sanjay and then his concluding remarks. So do you think that this could be an occasion for, in some ways, to put it in a certain way, a healing of America to begin? Could this, trigger a little bit of, rethink or introspection amongst everyone, about that we are all in the same boat. If not in the same boat, we are all in the same storm. We are all in our own boats, but we are all in the same storm, right? Which should, develop some empathy and compassion. But yes, those are, ideals and ideas that we should be looking and reminding. Now, over to you, Sanjay, for your concluding remarks. A little bit of what Raju concluded with, and then a wrap up, and then the session is over. Thank you, Sanjay. Your comments, please.
So a few points. Firstly, Raju, thanks for what you do, not just in Indiana, but Raju has brought in a lot of jobs into his state from around the world, especially India, and a lot of work that he has done beyond Indiana across the community. He's a tireless worker, and truly what Indian Americans are known for. So thanks again, Raju, for what you do. Coming to the topic of the discussion, just to summarize. So, President Trump's campaign manager, Bill Stapien, is also tested positive for COVID. his former campaign manager, Brad Pascal, who was kind of an advisor, has had some legal trouble. So, and then Kellyanne Conway, who's been his unofficial advisor. So the question becomes is now obviously President Trump is his own campaign head. There's nobody who does campaigning better than him. But when you look at the structure of his campaign, how will that? I mean, if you take two or three of the top key people are at least impacted in some shape or form, and we don't know how sick they are. What impact does it have on the campaign? We don't know. That's number one. Second, he can't do large rallies. That's really his big strength. Even though I have a feeling is they will go with surrogates and he will be there on a virtual basis to drive his base, etc. So I think that's to be said. Now, Steve made another point is um, regarding the polls. We know how accurate the polls were last time. So I'm very skeptical now of the polling, even though there are a lot of credible places that have done polls. Most of these polls are done by phone. A lot of mail-in ballots are coming in. How does mail-in impact? That's going to be a big question. And then how will this whole issue about President Trump, being sick, because the image that he has always portrayed is of a strong, aggressive leader. Now he's got corona. Now that doesn't mean that he's still not strong, aggressive, etc. But that's been that image might be a little bit dented. So we'll see how all of this kind of plays out. I think it's too early, and as I said, polling is not the best that it used to be because people are making phone calls. The people who are sometimes, in many cases, they don't really disclose what they really want to say, and I think that's the challenge that we have right now. But one thing I'll say is when you talked about healing, well, elections and politics is a blood sport, and if you don't want to be in that, then you should get out. I mean, I don't see anything changing because the stakes are so high. Yes, that maybe the tone will come down a bit, but the stakes are pretty high here. So they've got to do what they've got to do, and they are going to do what they're going to do. So what I can say is it's going to be an interesting next 4 weeks.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
Sanjay, this reminds me when we started out our discussion, Raju said that he will be candid. And I said, yes, that's what we need, because the viewers are out there and we want to have the questions which are topmost in the minds, which are unsaid, but to be out there. So like what you said right now, I absolutely, yes. I mean, it's a blood sport. And another key point which you made, I think definitely yes. If some of the key campaign aides or advisors of President Trump are kind of handicapped, or I mean, they are struck down and they have to be quarantined and all. That obviously affects your operation. That is a handicap. If more of your team is kind of not able to perform, so what impact that would have? Yes, the question is open. So thank you so much, Sanjay. Maybe Steve, you could have one quick icing on the cake, sir.
Yeah, quick icing on the cake is just it's going to be interesting to see how these things shake out. I personally do think that we'll wind up seating the Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. I think that they were doing, the Democrats are doing Zoom hearings, confirmed judges. What's the difference here? I understand that we got some sick folks, but it is sort of the intricacies of how this will all shake out. I do think she will eventually get seated. I think it is a little bit of Democrats are going to get the stimulus they want, Republicans are going to get the Supreme Court justice, and everybody's going to complain anyways, but they're all going to get what they want. So that's kind of what I'm projecting. And we'll see how it affects the election going forward. There's a lot of that in Washington, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raju Chentela, for your time and your participation. And once again, may I remind our viewers, Please do put up your questions on, because now this would be a video on Facebook, so you can come by and comment on the chats, and our teams and our colleagues would answer your comments also. And do look out, we are now going to have these hangout hours continuously for some time to come, given the speed and importance of things which are out there in the elections. So thank you so much, Raju, for your time. Thank you so much, Sanjay, founder, chairman of the US India Political Action Committee, which has been doing stellar work for the last 20 odd years through so many various initiatives, of all kinds within the US, and of course also on US India relations. Some marquee initiatives have been led by the US India Political Action Committee. So thank you, Sanjay, for your leadership. Please keep it up. And again, yes, a reminder, as Sanjay, you said, as Raju said, that the best participation would be to show up and vote for the Indian American community. Just a reminder. Thank you so much, Steve, for your insights and your perspectives and sharing with the audiences, sharing with us all. And I hope all of us have a nice weekend. It's a Saturday today, right? Yeah. Have a great weekend. And thank you so much for your time. Ciao. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.